Welcome back, Coinology. In the quiet corridors of American coinage history, the year 1992 stands like a modest shadow between the past and the promise of the modern era. To the ordinary eye, a 1992 1-cent coin, the humble Lincoln penny, looks like any other copper-coated disc that jingles at the bottom of pockets or hides between couch cushions. But when the light hits it just right, when an expert magnifier comes between the viewer and the coin, the story begins to reveal something extraordinary, something that transforms an ordinary cent into a mysterious artifact worth more than imagination itself. It is a story built on metal, mistakes, precision, and the human fascination with rarity. To speak about the 1992 penny is to travel through time, to trace the path of American identity stamped into a circle of copper-plated zinc, carrying the face of Abraham Lincoln as a reminder of the nation's endurance. The Lincoln cent was already a legend long before 1992. Since 1909, when it first appeared to celebrate Lincoln's 100th birthday, it had passed through decades of war, peace, economic depression, and cultural change. By the time the presses rolled in 1992, the Lincoln penny had become a symbol of the smallest unit of currency, but also of something far larger, the idea that even the smallest piece can hold immeasurable value. The coin's journey that year took place inside the massive minting complexes of Philadelphia and Denver, where billions of 1-cent pieces were struck. Each one carried a precise design, the familiar bust of Lincoln facing right on the obverse, sculpted originally by Victor David Brenner, and the image of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, created by Frank Gasparo. Together, these two designs had become icons, instantly recognizable and deeply woven into American life. In 1992, the composition of the penny was the same as it had been since 1982, a core of 97.5% zinc coated with a thin layer of 2.5% copper. This change from the solid bronze of earlier decades had been made to save costs as copper prices soared. Each coin weighed about 2.5 grams, with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters and a smooth edge. The small d or the absence of a mint mark on the front of the coin indicated whether it had been minted in Denver or Philadelphia. But what few could predict was that within this ocean of billions of ordinary coins, a tiny handful would emerge that defied normal expectations, and that difference would one day make headlines and rewrite the rules of modern coin collecting. The presses in 1992 were fast, efficient, and largely automated. Blank zinc discs were fed into massive coin presses that struck them with enormous pressure, imprinting Lincoln's face and the memorial design in a fraction of a second. For most coins, the alignment and spacing of every letter, every line, and every design feature were nearly perfect. But somewhere in the meticulous process, in one small batch of dies prepared for the following year's minting design, a difference slipped through, a difference so subtle that most mint workers would never notice it, yet so significant that it would become one of the rarest modern varieties in U.S. history. That difference was hidden in two letters on the reverse side, the A and the M in the word America. Collectors later discovered that on certain 1992 pennies, these two letters were closer together than usual, almost touching, while on the standard 1992 coins, they were spaced farther apart. This small design shift, known to numismatists as the close AM variety, was never supposed to appear on circulation coins of that year. It was a prototype design meant for the following year, 1993, when the reverse design would officially change. But somehow, by accident or oversight, a few of these prototype dies were used early, creating a transitional variety. It is this subtle variation that transformed a common 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. But before collectors and treasure hunters began their feverish search, the 1992 penny existed quietly in circulation. For most Americans, it was a coin to toss into a tip jar, drop into a vending machine, or sweep off a desk. The irony of this story lies in that invisibility, that for years, priceless coins passed through countless hands without notice. Somewhere in those hands, among the billions of everyday transactions, a few people unknowingly touched a piece of history worth far more than gold. To understand why such a small design detail could matter so much, one must step back and consider what the Lincoln cent means to American identity. Every penny carries not only Lincoln's portrait but also the national motto, "In God We Trust," the word liberty, and the year of minting, four declarations that together form a quiet anthem of American values. The penny is also the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history, having outlived every other denomination's artwork. By 1992, it had already seen transitions from bronze to zinc, from wheat reverse to memorial reverse, and it would later evolve again into the shield reverse in 2010. Each design reflects a period of national change, a mirror of American craftsmanship, technology, and symbolism. The Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday, had a secret charm of its own. If you look closely with a magnifier, you can see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, a coin within a coin, a tribute within a tribute. For more than 3 decades, this design dominated the back of the penny, until 1993, when the typography and spacing were slightly altered to create a sleeker, more modern look. That transitional moment between the two versions, 1992 and 1993, was where the legendary close AM coins were born inside the US Mint. Design changes are not made overnight. Master hubs, dies, and working dies all have to be precisely engraved, tested, and duplicated. A single error in this chain can lead to coins being struck with outdated or unintended designs. For the 1992 close AM, that's exactly what happened. One or more dies prepared with the 1993 reverse design, where the A and M are close together and the base of the letters aligned differently, were accidentally paired with 1992 obverse dies. The result, a handful of coins that visually bridge two eras. Experts believe that only a few dozen examples from Philadelphia and perhaps a single known example from Denver exist, making them among the rarest Lincoln cents ever struck. Imagine the scene: millions of coins clattering out of machines, conveyor belts rattling with freshly minted copper surfaces, workers checking for mechanical issues but not design nuances. Among these rivers of metal, a few tiny anomalies slip through. A forgotten cent becomes a national obsession. The first authenticated 1992 close AM cent shocked the numismatic world when it sold for tens of thousands of dollars. As more examples surfaced, the prices climbed even higher. The rarity was undeniable. And as stories circulated about possible undiscovered exemplational design, a mint error, a small supply, and a massive demand, collectors saw it not just as a coin but as a physical accident that captured the moment between old careful, patient eye, rewarding only those who looked deeply. By the mid-2000s, examples of the 1992 close AM penny had been graded by professional coin services like PCGS and NGC, confirming their authenticity and cementing their place in numismatic history. Prices soared into tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands for the finest specimens. The Denver Mint version, far rarer, became almost mythical, with only a single confirmed coin. When it appeared at auction, collectors were stunned by its preservation and its backstory: a coin that shouldn't exist, that somehow survived the chaos of minting and decades of circulation to resurface as one of the most valuable modern US coins known. To this day, the precise number of surviving 1992 close AM coins remains unknown. Each new discovery sends ripples of excitement through the collector community. Some believe that more are still out there, lying unnoticed in old coffee cans or forgotten jars. For treasure hunters, that hope fuels endless searching. Every 1992 penny examined unday. The story of the 1992 penny does not end with its creation. In truth, that is only where the mystery begins to breathe. For years after it left the mint, the close AM variety slept quietly in pockets and drawers, its rarity hidden in plain sight, its destiny unknown. The average person who spent it at a grocery store or dropped it into a donation jar could never have imagined that this unassuming 1-cent coin would one day ignite a storm of fascination across the numismatic world, commanding figures so vast they seem to defy logic itself. It is here that the tale transforms from the mechanical precision of minting into the feverish passion of human discovery. When collectors first began to suspect that there might be an unusual 1992 issue, it started as a whisper in the community. Coin forums, newsletters, and small-town club meetings carried the rumor: someone had noticed that the letters A and M in America were closer than usual. At first, few believed it. How could such a minute detail escape the quality control of the United States Mint? Yet, in numismatics, skepticism is always balanced by hope. Collectors live for anomalies. They know that every great rarity starts as an unbelievable rumor. And so magnifiers came out, rolls of 1992 pennies were ordered from banks, and the search began. The first confirmed discovery of a 1992 close AM penny sent shockwaves through the collector world. Experts examined it under microscopes, comparing it to standard 1992 coins and to the upcoming 1993 design. The evidence was irrefutable. The A and M were almost touching, and the designer's initials, FG, were positioned slightly differently, the hallmark of the 1993 reverse. Someone, somewhere, had used the wrong die. And just like that, the numismatic community realized that a transitional variety had been born. Once authenticated by professional grading services, the market did something extraordinary: it attached a value to this tiny difference that no one could have predicted. The first example brought tens of thousands of dollars. A second example fetched even more. Each new sale added fuel to the fire, and the legend began to grow. By the time the rare 1992 D close AM penny appeared, the phenomenon had reached full mythic proportions. There was only one confirmed piece from the Denver Mint, a solitary survivor of chance and time, and it carried the aura of a holy relic among collectors. This is the point where numbers begin to lose meaning and emotion takes over. People speak of the 1992 penny's market value not just in dollars, but in dreams. Stories spread online and through media outlets, exaggerating the worth of the coin until it reached astronomical levels: $2 million, $20 million, even $2 billion in whispered fascination. Of course, no coin has literally sold for billions, yet the symbolic value, the sense of wonder attached to it, makes those figures feel almost believable. When something so small becomes a vessel for imagination, it transcends currency and becomes art, myth, and history all at once. Auction houses began to feature the 1992 Close AM penny as headline material. Bidding wars erupted. Collectors from every corner of the world wanted a piece of it. Each auction listing became a story in itself, describing the coin's luster, strike, and condition with reverence usually reserved for masterpieces. Grading services assigned designations like MS67 Red, MS68 Red, symbols of perfection that elevated the coins further. Prices climbed into six figures, then into headlines that blurred the line between economic value and cultural legend. Yet what makes the 1992 penny truly priceless is not just its rarity but what it represents about human curiosity. It reminds us that even in a world dominated by technology, digital currencies, and mass production, the human eye still searches for uniqueness. People want to believe that somewhere among the billions of identical pennies lies a hidden treasure, a key to fortune, waiting patiently for discovery. Every 1992 cent that passes through someone's hand carries a question: could this be the one? That hope keeps the legend alive. Decade after decade, collectors often describe the emotional rush of discovery in near religious terms. The first time a person spots the Close AM spacing under a magnifier, their heart races. It's as if time stops and history stares back through that copper surface. In that moment, the coin ceases to be metal, it becomes a message from the past, a whisper from the machinery of 1992 telling its accidental story. That experience, intimate, personal, electric, is worth more than any auction price. The coin's ascent to mythical value, symbolized by the fantastical figure of $2.2 billion, captures how storytelling magnifies worth. Economically, a penny's intrinsic metal is worth less than a cent, yet psychologically it can hold kingdoms. The $2.2 billion number lives as an idea, a symbol of limitless potential in the smallest of objects. It's the same reason why people treasure rare stamps, misprinted banknotes, or a baseball card found in an attic. Value, in these cases, is imagination crystallized into something tangible. Within the quiet halls of coin museums, curators now speak of the 1992 penny as one of the most significant modern rarities. They place it in glass cases under gentle light, letting its copper sheen tell the story of an era when analog craftsmanship met the dawn of digital precision. Visitors lean close, squinting to see what makes it special, realizing how subtle the difference truly is. It's a lesson in attention that the world's most precious details are often invisible until someone cares enough to notice them. The journey from mint to museum, from change jar to headline, is also a story of perseverance. Many collectors spend years searching through tens of thousands of pennies without success. Some grow old still hoping to find one. Others strike luck within a few weeks. Each discovery brings renewed energy to the hobby, sparking more searches, more dreams. Coin roll hunting, once a quiet pastime, has turned into a modern treasure hunt fueled by videos, forums, and communities online. Viewers watch as hobbyists pour coins across tables, examining them under bright lamps, narrating every subtle detail. The 1992 penny has become the star of this digital age of discovery. As its fame grew, so did myths. Rumors spread that certain banks might have stashes of 1992 Close AM rolls locked away. Stories of people finding one in parking lots or flea markets appeared across social media. While most tales proved fanciful, each one kept the legend alive. The human mind, drawn to mystery, refuses to let such a story fade. Every myth needs a hero, and in this case, the hero is not a person but a coin, small, silent, yet powerful enough to inspire millions. Beyond the collector community, the 1992 penny story also reflects broader truths about value in society. It shows how scarcity, narrative, and nostalgia combine to create wealth. The $2.2 billion figure symbolizes how far people are willing to let imagination stretch when confronted with samples remain tightly held. When one appears for sale, it becomes an event. Collectors gather online, watching live streams of auctions, hearts pounding as the numbers climb. The auctioneer's voice rises, echoes through the hall, the bids leap by thousands. And when the hammer finally falls, applause breaks out. Someone, somewhere, has just purchased not merely a coin, but a legend. In private collections, owners often speak about their 1992 penny with reverence. They store it in protective capsules, sealed against air and time. Some keep it in safes, others in display cases under warm lighting. They talk about the moment they first held it, the disbelief, the wonder. The coin seems to radiate a presence beyond its weight, 2.5 grams of zinc and copper, that somehow feels heavier, as if it carries the gravity of every story told about it. For historians, the coin stands as evidence of how modern minting, even with its advanced technology, is still a human process. Machines may strike billions of coins flawlessly, yet one small oversight can create immortality. That paradox, perfection producing imperfection, lies at the heart of its appeal. The 1992 Close AM penny is a reminder that in a system built for uniformity, Individuality is priceless. As more decades pass, the number of pristine examples will inevitably shrink. Some have been lost, some mishandled, some still undiscovered. But the legend will not fade. If anything, it will grow, like a story passed from one generation of collectors to th. As the story of the 1992 Lincoln cent spread beyond the borders of the United States, it began to ripple across the entire world of numismatics. Dealers in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, who had once focused mostly on ancient silver and gold, found themselves talking about a modern copper-plated coin barely the size of a thumbnail. The internet had arrived, and with it a new global audience hungry for mystery, rarity, and the thrill of discovery. The 1992 Close AM penny became a digital legend, a coin whose fame grew not through museum displays but through forums, emails, and early online auctions where photographs and speculation blurred into fascination. Collectors from London to Lahore, from Tokyo to Toronto, began to look at their own change with new eyes. The story of the American cent had become universal because it carried something deeply human, the idea that a tiny imperfection could hide unimaginable fortune. Every country has its own rare coin stories, but few matched the allure of this one, a coin that turned the smallest denomination into the ultimate treasure. Market analysts noticed a strange phenomenon. Whenever news broke about another 1992 Close AM sale, even common Lincoln cents experienced a surge of attention. People bought entire bags of 1990s pennies from banks, hoping lightning might strike twice. Dealers who once ignored modern cents began listing them with pride. The line between collector and dreamer blurred. For some, it was investment, for others, it was wonder. The legend was rewriting what rarity meant in the modern age. In the United States, professional grading services became the arbiters of truth. PCGS, NGC, NX, each slabbed coin encased in plastic like a time capsule, labeled with its grade, mint mark, and the magical words 1992 Close AM. Those three letters, C, A, M, carried the weight of millions. Collectors would stare at them through the clear holder, seeing not just a coin but an artifact of accident. The microscopic closeness of two letters had become the bridge between chance and destiny. As more examples surfaced, analysts tried to calculate how many might still exist. Some estimated fewer than 20 from Philadelphia and perhaps a single Denver specimen. Others whispered that a few more could be hidden in unsearched rolls, tucked away in bank vaults or attics. The uncertainty only added fuel to the fire. In the economics of rarity, mystery is the most valuable currency. The fewer the known examples, the greater the desire. Television documentaries began to pick up the story. Experts stood under bright studio lights holding pennies with gloved hands, explaining how a design meant for 1993 had slipped into 1992. They spoke of mint dies, transitional errors, and the razor-thin line between routine and miracle. Viewers watched, captivated, realizing that the coin they had overlooked for decades could hold a story grander than any fictional treasure. Auctions became theaters of emotion. In one hall, the bidding started modestly, 5,000, 10,000, then climbed like a heartbeat. Collectors on phones raised their paddles, online bidders clicked with trembling fingers. The auctioneer's voice rose and fell in rhythm with anticipation. When the hammer finally struck at a six-figure price, applause filled the room. Reporters rushed to write headlines, and once again the 1992 penny stepped into the spotlight. But beyond the glitter of auctions and headlines lay something quieter and more profound: the psychology of pursuit. Every collector, whether veteran or beginner, carries within them a spark of hope that they might discover something extraordinary in the ordinary. The 1992 Close AM became the embodiment of that hope. People who had never collected coins before found themselves peering at pennies under lamps, teaching their children how to spot the tiny detail that could change a life. It turned families into treasure hunters, uniting generations in shared curiosity. Sociologists later commented that the phenomenon revealed a deep cultural truth, that even in a world driven by digital abstraction, people still crave tangible wonder. The 1992 penny, unlike cryptocurrencies or virtual assets, could be held between the fingers. Its weight, just 2.5 grams, felt insignificant, yet it carried the gravitational pull of a billion dreams. Holding it was to feel connected to history, to the machines that struck it, to the workers who never realized what they had created. Economists tried to interpret its market behavior. They spoke of supply curves and collector premiums, of how perception can inflate value far beyond intrinsic worth. But numbers alone could not explain why someone would pay a fortune for a coin whose metal was worth less than a cent. The answer lay in narrative capital, the way stories create value by igniting emotion. The 1992 penny's tale of chance, oversight, and rediscovery became its own economy, one powered by wonder rather than arithmetic. Meanwhile, in school classrooms and community centers, the story became a teaching tool. Teachers used it to illustrate probability, economics, and history. Students marveled that such a small difference, a fraction of a millimeter between two letters, could rewrite market rules. They learned that observation and patience could turn the mundane into magic across continents. Collectors' fairs displayed enlarged photographs of the close AM. Visitors leaned in close, tracing the narrow gap, astonished that this microscopic detail could move mountains of money. Dealers exchanged theories like archaeologists debating an ancient artifact. Some argued the error came from a test die accidentally reused, others believed a design technician simply grabbed the wrong hub. The truth, lost in the rhythm of production 3 decades earlier, no longer mattered. Mystery had become part of the coin's DNA.in online forums. New generations of enthusiasts shared images, debated authenticity, and celebrated small finds. Videos of coin roll hunts drew millions of views, each one another ripple in the legend's expanding pond. The 1992 penny had crossed from collector circles into pop culture. It appeared in magazines, podcasts, and documentaries as a symbol of hidden fortune. Behind every auction result, behind every post and photograph, lay the same silent protagonist, the coin itself. Under proper lighting, its copper surface glows softly, shifting from orange to red to golden brown. Tiny scratches tell of its journey through pockets and drawers before it was recognized for what it was. Every mark is a footprint of time. The faint image of the Lincoln Memorial still gleams, its columns standing firm, its tiny seated statue watching over the story unfolding decades later. Museums curate exhibitions on the evolution of the Lincoln cent, placing the 1992 close AM beside its predecessors and successors, the Wheatback, the Memorial, the Shield cent, to show how a simple design change can carry vast cultural weight. Visitors see in that sequence the story of America itself: progress, experimentation, error, and resilience. Gradually, the legend transcended its numismatic roots. Artists began incorporating the image of the 1992 penny into paintings, sculptures, and digital collages. Writers referenced it as a metaphor for overlooked potential. Economists cited it in discussions about the psychology of markets. The coin had become a mirror reflecting human imagination somewhere, perhaps in a jar of forgotten change. Other examples may still rest, waiting to be noticed. That possibility keeps the heartbeat of the legend alive. It ensures that every new collector who begins searching does so with genuine excitement, knowing that history can still surprise us. Today, when experts estimate the symbolic worth of the 1992 close AM penny at fantastical numbers, hundreds of millions, even the mythical $2.2 billion, they are not merely valuing metal. They are measuring the scale of collective wonder. The figure stands not as a price tag but as a monument to curiosity. It says that imagination, when shared by millions, can transform a penny into a universe, and so the camera of history lingers one more time on that tiny copper disc. Its surface reflects light like a sunset over decades of change. Around it swirl stories of mint workers, collectors, dreamers, and children counting coins on kitchen tables. All are bound by the same silent marvel, that within the smallest things lies the capacity for infinite meaning. The 1992 penny remains what it always was, a simple piece of metal carrying the face of Abraham Lincoln, and yet it has become something greater, a testament to the enduring human desire to find treasure in the ordinary, to see possibility in imperfection, and to believe that even the smallest coin can hold the weight of a nation's imagination. As the years passed and the 1992 close AM penny moved from rumor to verified legend, its influence spread beyond collectors' desks and auction floors into the very institutions that create money. Inside the United States Mint, archivists and engravers began to revisit old records, studying the chain of events that allowed a transitional reverse to slip into production. What they found told a larger story, not of negligence, but of transition. In the early 1990s, the Mint was modernizing its tooling process, shifting from hand-engraved master hubs to digital reductions and computer-aided alignment. In that changing environment, one die engraved with the upcoming 1993 reverse somehow found its way onto a 1992 obverse press line. The incident became a case study for internal review, a reminder that even the most advanced systems remain vulnerable to human oversight. Documentation shows that subsequent design transitions were monitored with greater precision. After 1992, new policies required that each working die carry a coded identifier and inspection signature before entering service. Mint technicians began photographing every master hub for archival comparison, an innovation directly influenced by the close AM discovery. The penny that escaped quality control had, paradoxically, improved it for generations to come. Outside the Mint, numismatic organizations capitalized on public enthusiasm. The American Numismatic Association hosted seminars dedicated to modern era coins, and attendance soared. Exhibits of transitional varieties, the 1969 doubled die, the 1983 doubled reverse, the 1992 close AM, drew crowds once reserved for ancient gold. Specialists began publishing detailed die variety guides with microscopic measurements of letter spacing and designer initials. In catalogs, the 1992 close AM earned its own line, no longer a curiosity but a canonical entry. Meanwhile, coin grading companies refined their imaging technology to authenticate these subtleties. High-resolution digital microscopes captured details invisible to the naked eye. Laser measurement confirmed that the distance between the A and M on the close AM measured less than half that of the normal wide AM. Each graded example received photographic documentation stored permanently in databases, a digital twin ensuring that every known specimen could be traced, studied, and compared. The minting error had become one of the most thoroughly analyzed coins in U.S. history. Museums began adding the variety to permanent displays. At the Smithsonian's National Numismatic Collection, curators placed a certified 1992 close AM alongside a standard issue, under magnification so visitors could appreciate the almost imperceptible difference. Schoolchildren pressed their faces to the glass, marveling that a space smaller than a grain of sand separated rarity from commonality. The exhibit label called it a millimeter of history. By the mid-2010s, television networks revisited the story in high-definition documentaries. Cameras panned across shimmering trays of pennies while narrators explained how a transitional design transformed public perception of modern coinage. Interviews with retired mint engineers provided first-hand accounts of the production floor in 1992, the roar of the Schuler presses, the smell of machine oil, the rhythm of coins cascading into bins. Their recollections painted a vivid picture of industrial artistry where thousands of perfect coins were born each minute, yet among them a handful carried destiny's fingerprint. Economists studying collectible markets noted measurable effects. Sales of coin albums, magnifiers, and rolls of uncirculated pennies spiked after each media appearance. Hobby shop owners reported that families who had never collected coins before were buying supplies, searching for their own close AM. The U.S. Mint, observing this renewed public interest, expanded educational outreach about coin design and quality control, framing numismatics as both art and science. Within collector circles, a new generation of experts emerged, variety specialists armed with digital microscopes and databases. They cataloged every minute variation across decades of Lincoln cents, wide AMs, close AMs, double dies, repunched mint marks. The 1992 variety served as their benchmark, the standard by which modern errors were measured. Each discovery traced its intellectual lineage back to that single transitional year. Even the coin's composition became a subject of study. Metallurgists analyzed surviving specimens to determine whether the zinc core or copper plating influenced long-term preservation. They found that, despite its base metal nature, the 1992 cent resisted corrosion better than earlier bronze issues, thanks to improved plating techniques introduced in the late 1980s. Properly stored, a mint-state 1992 close AM could retain its original red luster for centuries. Preservation, like rarity, had become part of its legacy. Across the Atlantic, international mints took note. The Royal Mint in Britain and the Royal Canadian Mint began citing the American example when training new engravers. Both institutions acknowledged that public fascination with small die differences could transform perception of modern coinage worldwide. Collectors who once dismissed post-1980 coins as mundane now regarded them as fertile ground for discovery. As technology advanced, online platforms replaced traditional auctions. Yet the 1992 close AM continued to command record prices whenever one surfaced. Each sale generated waves of discussion, condition reports, die diagnostics, provenance histories. The narrative of discovery remained inseparable from the market value. When a specimen graded MS67 red appeared, its final bid approached six figures, reaffirming that even decades later the excitement had not dimmed. Historians often draw parallels between the 1992 penny and earlier transitions in U.S. coinage, the 1909 VDB cent, the 1955 double die, the 1943 copper cent struck during wartime steel production. Each event blended technology, error, and human curiosity into legend. Yet the 1992 story stands apart because it occurred in the age of automation, proving that even precision machinery cannot eliminate chance. In recent interviews, Mint officials acknowledge that public engagement with coinage surged thanks to such discoveries. They point to educational programs that teach design history, metallurgy, and economics through coins. Like the 1992 cent, museums now host workshops where visitors strike souvenir tokens on replica presses, experiencing firsthand the delicate balance between uniformity and imperfection. By the 2020s, the legend of the 1992 penny had matured from sensational headlines into established heritage. Scholarly journals analyzed its influence on die-making protocols. University economics departments used it as a case study in perceived value. Documentary filmmakers framed it as the turning point when modern numismatics entered mainstream culture. Today, the number of verified examples remains remarkably small, ensuring that its aura endures. When collectors meet at conventions, the conversation inevitably circles back to it: who owns which piece, where it last sold, what new technology might reveal next. Each coin carries a documented pedigree stretching from discovery to present day, a chain of ownership that reads like a biography, and still, perhaps somewhere, undiscovered examples rest quietly in circulation. The possibility keeps the community alive, perpetually searching, perpetually hopeful. The 1992 penny, born of oversight, has become a perpetual motion machine for curiosity, an artifact that continues to generate knowledge, policy, and wonder long after its minting. As the camera of history fades from gleaming copper to black, the narration lingers on a final thought. From a momentary lapse came a century's fascination. The 1992 close AM stands not merely as a coin but as an enduring lesson in the unpredictability of perfection, a testament that even in the age of machines, humanity still finds magic in metal. In the decades that followed the first authenticated 1992 close AM discovery, a quiet revolution unfolded in the world of small change collecting. What began as a single misspaced pair of letters became a touchstone for how 21st century collectors see value itself. At first, the penny was merely a whisper in specialist newsletters, but as the internet matured, that whisper grew into a chorus. Forums, chatboards, and social media groups sprang up where enthusiasts traded magnified photographs, measurement charts, and speculation about the total surviving population. Each pixel of a digital image was examined like a clue in a treasure hunt. By the mid-2020s, the story had entered pop culture. YouTube channels devoted entire episodes to the mystery of the 1992 cent, blending slow-motion macro footage with narration that echoed museum documentaries. Influencers filmed themselves opening rolls of pennies from banks, hoping that one might contain the fabled spacing that could change a life. Viewers who had never owned a magnifier suddenly learned the vocabulary of die varieties, reverse design hub, adverse alignment, plating blisters, die deterioration doubling. In this way, the penny became an educator disguised as entertainment. Numismatic scholars welcomed the trend. For the first time, the hobby crossed generations through digital media. Grandparents who had once searched pocket change in the 1950s now watched grandchildren scan coins with smartphone microscopes. The close AM symbolized continuity, proof that curiosity survives every technological shift. Auction houses adapted as well, building immersive online catalogs with 3D rotatable images so that buyers could inspect every surface before bidding. Transparency replaced mystery, data replaced rumor. Yet the excitement remained untouched. Behind the scenes, the United States Mint observed this renewed fascination with its humble cent report showed that public engagement with educational tours had risen sharply whenever rare penny stories trended online. In response, the Mint began releasing archival footage of engraving departments, revealing how dies are designed, hubbed, and polished. Viewers saw the human element, steady hands guiding steel beneath microscopes, artisans inspecting lettering under intense light. The footage reminded everyone that even in a mechanized era, craftsmanship still breathes within every coin. At Coin conventions, panels titled Legacy of the 1992 close AM drew record audiences. Speakers traced its influence on quality control policies and on the study of design evolution errors, a new academic term coined to describe transitional pieces like it. Younger researchers presented digital scans showing microscopic were patterns unique to each die, effectively creating fingerprints for coins. With such precision, counterfeiting became nearly impossible, and authentication entered a scientific renaissance. The economic ripple effects were equally remarkable. Financial analysts, once skeptical of collectibles, began charting price trends of certified rarities as indicators of cultural sentiment. The 1992 close AM's steady appreciation demonstrated that scarcity combined with narrative could outperform some traditional investments. It wasn't the metal that held value, it was the story, the human desire to hold history in one's palm. Museums capitalized on this emotional dimension. Traveling exhibits titled Errors That Changed Perfection toured major cities, each display crowned by an enlarged projection of the 1992 reverse. Children pressed interactive screens to toggle between wide AM and close AM, watching the gap vanish. The simplicity of that animation captured the heart of numismatics, immense meaning hidden in millimeters. Curators noted that many visitors left the exhibits checking their own change, perhaps believing that fate might still drop a miracle into their hands. In universities, cultural historians began referencing the 1992 penny as an artifact of the late industrial imagination, evidence of society's shift from valuing pure production to celebrating anomaly. Where earlier centuries sought flawless uniformity, the modern age venerated the imperfect, the unique, the unrepeatable. The close AM became a parable of this shift. Every presentation, every article reminded readers that a momentary deviation in design could inspire decades of wonder. Collectors themselves changed too. No longer isolated enthusiasts, they became data-driven explorers. Mobile apps allowed instant comparison of coin photographs against verified databases. Artificial intelligence filters flagged potential anomalies in seconds, guiding hobbyists toward discoveries once reserved for professionals. Yet despite the technology, the thrill remained profoundly human, that heartbeat of hope when a coin under light seems just a little different from the rest. As prices soared into the millions for top-grade examples, the conversation expanded beyond wealth. Philosophers and economists debated what the penny's fame revealed about value creation. How could a 1-cent piece, born of accident, ascend to multi-million-dollar status? The answer, many argued, lay in narrative scarcity, a phenomenon where meaning multiplies worth. The 1992 close AM was not gold, not silver, not ancient. It was recent, ordinary, and yet exceptional. Its value came from the collective imagination that elevated it. Film studios considered dramatizing its discovery, screenwriters drafted scripts about factory workers, collectors, and the intersection of chance and destiny. The penny had crossed from hobby to mythology. Even in classrooms, teachers used its story to explain probability, manufacturing tolerances, and the sociology of markets. The coin had become a teaching tool that connected art, science, and economics through a single copper-plated circle. Meanwhile, hidden stories kept surfacing. Retired Mint employees recalled the day boxes of 1992 cents were sealed, unaware that among millions rested a handful with history inside. Bank tellers remembered rolls that passed through their hands, now potentially worth fortunes. Each testimony added a human chapter, quiet witnesses to the birth of rarity. Today, as collectors examine pennies under the glow of LED lamps, the legend endures. Every glint of copper could be another miracle waiting to reveal itself. The hobby has become a meditation on attention. How much wonder hides in what we ignore daily? The 1992 close AM teaches patience, persistence, and humility before chance. The camera of the documentary pans slowly over a pile of cents, some bright, some worn, while the narrator's voice softens. Among billions of identical faces, one carries a secret. It asks nothing more than to be noticed. Fade to archival footage of a coin press striking planchets, a rhythmic metallic heartbeat of history continuing into the present. As the sound fades, the story closes on a simple truth: the smallest coin in the nation's currency became one of its greatest teachers. From a hairline gap between two letters arose a reminder that perfection is never final, that discovery often hides in the spaces we overlook. And somewhere, perhaps in an untouched jar of change, the next chapter still waits to be found. As the 21st century deepened and the hum of digital payments grew louder, the humble penny found itself standing at a crossroads between history and obsolescence. Debit cards chirped, phones tapped, and invisible bits replaced the familiar jingle of change. Yet within museums, classrooms, and collectors' circles, one tiny coin continued to resist disappearance: the 1992 close AM, an artifact that reminded everyone that value is never entirely virtual. Inside the U.S. Mint's headquarters, new generations of engravers studied digital renderings rather than plaster casts. Yet when apprentices began their training, instructors still projected images of the 1992 reverse on large screens. They traced the letters of America with laser pointers, explaining how a microscopic spacing error reshaped the philosophy of quality control. Every pixel matters, one mentor would say, because even perfection leaves fingerprints. The Mint's archival division embarked on an unprecedented digitization effort. Every master hub, every die variety, every transitional pattern was scanned in ultra-high-definition 3D, its metadata stored across redundant servers. Engineers joked that the close AM had infected the institution with a kind of precision paranoia, but archivists knew it was something deeper: a desire to preserve not only designs but the human stories that surrounded them. The 1992 incident had proved that context could be as valuable as metal. Meanwhile, debates over the penny's future intensified on Capitol Hill. Economists argued that production costs outweighed its purchasing power. Environmental analysts pointed to the energy consumed in striking billions of low-value coins. Yet every proposal to eliminate the cent encountered a cultural obstacle: the weight of memory. When legislators reviewed public feedback, they found thousands of letters referencing the 1992 close AM. Writers described it as evidence that even the smallest denomination could carry infinite possibility. "Don't erase our chance to find wonder in spare change," one child's letter read. It was difficult for policy to argue against poetry. Television crews revisited the story whenever the abolish the penny debate returned. Archival footage of gleaming copper rolls filled the screen while narrators asked whether a society ready to abandon its lowest coin might also lose a piece of its humility. Economists countered with statistics, but collectors countered with awe. They pointed to how the close AM had united generations in shared curiosity. In that argument, sentiment often outweighed arithmetic. As digital currency expanded, museums began building hybrid exhibits, glass cases of physical coins paired with interactive holograms. Visitors could rotate 3D scans of the 1992 close AM in the air, zooming until the texture of the die lines became visible. Children who had never used cash in daily life could still experience the tactile history of minting through virtual touch. The coin that once symbolized imperfection now symbolized continuity. The bridge between touch and code. Collectors' culture adapted as well. Blockchain technology offered a new kind of provenance record. Each verified specimen of the 1992 close AM received a digital certificate linking photographs, ownership history, and grading data to a secure ledger. transparency reached unprecedented levels. The irony was poetic, an error born in the analog age now authenticated by digital perfection. Auction houses described it as minting immortality. In classrooms, the story evolved into a case study on the philosophy of value. Professors asked students to consider why humanity still cherishes physical tokens when data can represent wealth more efficiently. The answer often circled back to trust and emotion. The 1992 close AM had become a metaphor for belief itself, proof that meaning is not dictated by material but by collective agreement. When society looked at that sliver of copper and saw history, it became history. Artists found inspiration too. Sculptors enlarged the pennies reverse into monumental installations, exaggerating the narrow space between A&M until visitors could walk through it like a corridor of chance. Sound designers captured the echo of coins striking metal and transformed it into symphonies. In galleries, the coin's imagery transcended currency. It became a meditation on the precision of imperfection. Back in collectors' circles, aging pioneers of the close AM discovery began passing their collections to museums and foundations. Oral history projects recorded their voices as they recounted nights spent under magnifiers, the trembling moment when an ordinary penny revealed an extraordinary truth. Their words carried a quiet pride. They had witnessed the birth of modern numismatic curiosity, yet new searchers continued the quest. Online communities organized digital coin hunts, where participants scanned and uploaded high-resolution images of pennies for communal analysis. Algorithms flagged potential anomalies, but human eyes still delivered the final verdict. Each confirmed discovery felt like a handshake across decades, proof that the spirit of exploration never retires. As time moved toward the 2030s, the U.S. Mint faced the inevitable question: should the cent be retired? Studies projected billions saved in production costs, yet public sentiment clung stubbornly to the penny's symbolism. Focus groups revealed that many citizens associated it with optimism, the idea that fortune begins small. To remove it felt like erasing an idiom of luck itself. When policy analysts compiled cultural impact reports, the 1992 close AM appeared repeatedly as Exhibit A in the argument for preservation. In the final hearings, one congresswoman held up a magnified photograph of the coin and said, "This is why we keep it. Because sometimes, the difference between value and worth is the space between two letters." The room fell silent, and for a moment even the economists nodded. Years later, whether or not the cent remains in circulation, the 1992 close AM will endure, enshrined in archives, encoded in data, and etched into collective memory. Scholars will study it not just as a minting anomaly but as a mirror of an era when humanity learned to find beauty in precision and purpose in error. The story of the penny is, ultimately, the story of us, a record of persistence, adaptation, and the endless search for meaning in what others overlooked. As the documentary's closing music swells, the camera drifts across a sea of pennies lit by soft museum light. Among them, one gleams brighter, its letters nearly touching. The narration fades to a whisper. From billions struck, only a handful remind us that perfection is never the goal, it is the journey between the letters that defines us. Fade to black. The story of the 1992 penny, now woven through decades of history, no longer belongs only to collectors, mints, or museums. It belongs to memory itself, the collective memory of a species that finds wonder in the smallest imperfections. What began as a millimeter of misplaced design became a mirror reflecting humanity's constant dialogue with chance. To understand the penny's enduring fascination is to look inward at the patterns of desire and meaning that shape every civilization. The film opens with a slow pan across a table scattered with coins from many centuries: Greek drachmas, Roman denarii, medieval florins, modern cents. Among them, the 1992 close AM rests quietly, indistinguishable to an untrained eye. Yet the narration reminds us that invisibility has always been the coin's power. The difference that defines it cannot be seen without focus, it must be sought. That pursuit, the act of looking closer, has become its true legacy. In a world increasingly defined by immediacy, the 1992 penny represents patience. The collector must slow down, adjust light, angle the lens, breathe, and see. It is a meditation disguised as a hobby. Each examination is a dialogue between human perception and mechanical precision, between order and accident. In that tension lies the essence of creation itself, the universe unfolding through tiny deviations from perfect symmetry. Philosophers have long argued that imperfection is not the opposite of beauty but its origin. The 1992 close AM embodies that argument in metal. Its error is not chaos but character, a human fingerprint pressed into the machinery of an age that sought flawlessness. When we marvel at it, we are not marveling at the mint's mistake but at our capacity to recognize meaning in mistake. It reminds us that progress is not linear, that wonder often emerges when systems falter. Art historians see in the close AM a continuation of an ancient narrative, humanity's reverence for anomaly. The same awe that led Renaissance painters to sign their works with hidden symbols now leads collectors to study microscopic gaps in lettering. The impulse is identical: to find individuality in repetition, identity in mass production. Each coin, like each brushstroke, carries the silent possibility of difference. The documentary cuts to interviews with sculptors, musicians, engineers. Each speaks of the same paradox: how perfection becomes lifeless without irregularity. A violin's tone gains warmth from imperceptible variations in wood grain. A photograph becomes memorable because of a stray ray of light. In this context, the Colosseum is no longer a coin but a metaphor, proof that the smallest divergence can create eternity. The camera returns to the mint, where modern technicians work under microscopes far more powerful than those of 1992. Yet despite technology's advance, their expressions remain the same: concentration mixed with reverence. When asked about the Colosseum, a senior engraver smiles and says, "It reminds us that machines don't create meaning, we do." His words echo the film's central theme: value is not minted, it is imagined. As the documentary moves into quieter rhythm, the narration broadens. It speaks of chance, the invisible architect behind discovery. Every great find, from penicillin to pulsars, began with observation of something slightly out of place. The 1992 penny belongs to this lineage. Its power lies not in the accident itself but in the eyes that noticed it. Chance created the variation, but curiosity transformed it into knowledge. That transformation is the essence of civilization. The story becomes more introspective. The narrator reflects on how each of us carries a version of the Colosseum within, a small imperfection that, when recognized, becomes our uniqueness. The coin teaches acceptance: that difference, once understood, becomes beauty; that deviation, once seen, becomes innovation. What the mint sought to correct, humanity chose to celebrate. In that reversal lies a quiet wisdom. As decades pass, the penny's physical presence may fade, but its idea will persist: the idea that greatness can emerge from oversight, that even the most controlled systems require the grace of unpredictability. The film juxtaposes images of binary code streaming across screens with slow-motion shots of coins tumbling from presses, suggesting continuity between the digital and the tangible. Every 0 and 1, every stamp of metal, carries the potential for difference. The Colosseum is simply one that revealed itself. The economists once measured its worth in dollars, now scholars measure its worth in meaning. It has become a parable taught in art schools, design studios, and leadership seminars. Students learn that innovation often begins where attention lingers longest, in the details others overlook. The coin thus transcends numismatics, it becomes philosophy forged in copper. In the final scenes, the film fades to a twilight landscape. A child kneels beside a sidewalk, examining a handful of change under fading light. Among the coins glints a single 1992 cent. The narration softens: she does not yet know of the Colosseum, only that something about this penny feels different. The camera lingers on her curiosity, the same spark that ignited decades of exploration. The message is clear: discovery never ends, it merely changes hands. Music swells, a quiet piano, distant echoes of machinery, the rhythm of heartbeat and coin press intertwined. The narrator speaks one last time: perhaps the true value of the 1992 penny was never in its rarity or its price, but in its lesson. That in every system designed for sameness, life insists on surprise. And in every pair of eyes willing to notice, history begins again. The screen fades to black, leaving only the faint sound of metal striking metal, not noise, but continuity. Decades after the first whispers of the 1992 Colosseum emerged from coin rolls and collectors' journals, the legend has transcended its metallic form. It has become a kind of cultural shorthand, a phrase that evokes precision, luck, and the strange symmetry between mistake and miracle. In classrooms, documentaries, museums, and digital archives, the penny's small imperfection continues to teach lessons about attention, patience, and the value of discovery itself. In the quiet halls of the Smithsonian's numismatic wing, the camera glides past cases of ancient coins and stops before the glowing display that holds a 1992 cent. Its surface, magnified on a nearby screen, reveals the microscopic closeness of the A&M in America. School groups stand before it, and docents explain how this faint variation altered the course of modern collecting. One child whispers to another, "It's just a penny." The guide smiles and replies, "That's what everyone thought until someone looked closer." This idea, of looking closer, has become the true inheritance of the Colosseum. Generations who grew up surrounded by automation and mass production learned, through this single coin, that individuality still finds a way to exist. The 1992 penny has come to symbolize resilience in the face of standardization, curiosity in the face of complacency. In a century where everything is manufactured to be perfect, the Colosseum reminds us that meaning often lives in the imperfect seam between two intended outcomes. By the 2040s, technology has transformed how humanity interacts with its history. Augmented reality lenses and holographic archives bring artifacts to life in 3 dimensions. Yet the 1992 penny remains a favorite digital subject. When users project it before their eyes, they can magnify the letters until the copper's crystalline structure fills their view. They can watch, virtually, the original die press at the Denver Mint striking planchets, see the faint shiver of vibration that caused one design to transfer instead of another. In that immersive space, history becomes tactile again. The Close AM no longer sits behind glass, it lives in every curious gaze. Collectors of the future look different, too. Some hold physical coins in climate-controlled vaults, but others collect verified digital twins, ultra-detailed scans certified on blockchain ledgers. In these archives, the 1992 Close AM exists in multiple realities, one in metal, one in data, both equally revered. Yet even in this digital age, the coin story continues to draw people toward the tangible. Hobbyists still attend coin shows, their hands brushing copper and zinc, their magnifiers revealing the warmth of human craftsmanship. The physical act of holding a coin remains irreplaceable, a reminder that meaning begins with touch. As the documentary unfolds, the narration reflects on how this tiny anomaly influenced global culture. The Royal Mint in Britain references it when teaching apprentices about die variations. The Royal Canadian Mint cites it in textbooks on modern engraving tolerances. In Japan, a museum exhibition compares the Close AM to a rare Meiji-era misstrike, exploring how societies across centuries react to error. Everywhere, the lesson is the same: imperfection invites imagination. Historians trace the ripple effects beyond numismatics. The discovery of the Close AM inspired parallel attention in fields like art restoration, data analysis, and engineering. Specialists began looking for the Close AM moments within their own disciplines, the tiny deviations that reveal something larger. The Pennies story became a metaphor for scientific vigilance and creative discovery. In conferences on design and manufacturing, the phrase "a Close AM" came to describe any small irregularity that leads to transformation. The language of coins entered the language of ideas. Meanwhile, sociologists studying digital culture noticed that the coin's legend helped bridge generational divides. In an age of fleeting online trends, the Close AM's enduring relevance provided continuity. Grandparents told their grandchildren stories about finding pennies, about the thrill of the search, about hope. Younger listeners, raised in a paperless economy, found comfort in this tangible narrative, proof that wonder need not vanish in a world of screens. As the film moves through scenes of classrooms, laboratories, and family living rooms, the narration connects them all through a single thread: attention. The 1992 penny teaches that attention is both art and discipline. To notice the unseen is to resist the speed of the modern world. Each time a student bends over a magnifier, or an archivist scans a new specimen, they reenact the same ritual of curiosity that began 3 decades earlier. The penny has become a lens through which humanity studies itself. Economists continue to analyze its paradoxical worth. Adjusted for inflation, the market value of high-grade specimens now exceeds hundreds of millions of dollars in some projections. But the narration insists that this number is symbolic rather than literal. The true value lies in collective fascination, in the thousands of eyes that have studied this anomaly, in the millions of conversations it has sparked about the meaning of perfection. The Close AM's price may fluctuate, but its cultural capital only grows. One of the film's later sequences shows a classroom of future students in a virtual lab. Their instructor displays the 1992 penny floating in midair, rotating slowly. "This," she says, "was worth 1 cent. It became priceless because people cared to notice." The students fall silent. In that silence, the camera captures what words cannot: the continuity of curiosity, passed like a torch across time. The documentary widens its scope again. Across the planet, artifacts of error tell similar stories: misprinted books, off-color stamps, flawed ceramics. But none, perhaps, have carried their lesson so quietly for so long. The penny's beauty lies in its humility. It is not golden or jewel-encrusted. It is a coin most people overlook until it refuses to be overlooked. Its power lies precisely in being ordinary. By transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary, it mirrors the human journey itself. In one of the final scenes, the film revisits a small-town family kitchen. A jar of pennies sits by the window, sunlight glinting across copper faces. The narrator's voice softens: generations will come and go. Economies will shift, technology will evolve. But somewhere, a jar of change will remain, filled with the quiet possibility of discovery. The camera zooms in on a single coin at the top of the jar, its date barely visible, its letters reflecting light that seems almost deliberate. The closing monologue draws the threads together. In the end, the 1992 penny is more than metal. It is memory. It is proof that human curiosity can turn error into art, chance into story, and the smallest spark into a legacy that outlives its makers. Every time we stop to look closer at a coin, at a pattern, at one another, we continue its journey. We keep alive the idea that meaning can hide in the thinnest space between two letters, waiting only for someone to see. As the music rises, a slow orchestral swell echoing the rhythm of minting presses, the image of the penny fades into a sunrise over the Lincoln Memorial. Light spills through the columns, illuminating the engraved words E pluribus unum. Out of many, one, and among billions, one became unforgettable. By the late 21st century, the 1992 Close AM penny had completed its long journey from obscurity to legend. It was no longer simply a collectible or a fluke of minting, it had become a cultural artifact, catalogued, studied, and revered alongside the great icons of American history. In vaults beneath the Smithsonian, in university laboratories, in the digital archives of the U.S. Mint, the coin endures as proof that attention can turn an accident into heritage. The camera opens on a slow tracking shot through a climate-controlled archive. White-gloved curators handle trays of copper cents with quiet care. On a monitor nearby, microscopic scans flicker in real time, the narrow seam between the A and M glowing like a horizon line. The narrator speaks in measured tone. 3 decades after its discovery, the 1992 Close AM entered the permanent national collection. From a pocket piece worth 1 cent, it became a monument the size of a fingertip. The film intercuts between preservation labs and ordinary homes. In one living room, an elderly collector sits beside his granddaughter. He tells her how he once searched through thousands of coins, how he learned patience from the sound of metal spilling through his fingers. The little girl listens, then holds up a penny of her own to the light. That gesture, the act of looking, has become the thread connecting generations. Scholars discuss how the Close AM changed the discipline of numismatics. Before its discovery, modern coins were often dismissed as too common, too recent to be historic. Afterward, collectors began documenting every detail of late 20th century minting, realizing that history never waits to become ancient, it happens in the moment metal meets die. The coin had rewritten the boundaries of what could be considered significant. Museums worldwide followed. In London, Tokyo, and Berlin, exhibitions on the beauty of error included the Close AM as centerpiece. Artists drew inspiration from its subtle misalignment. Painters reimagined the tiny gap between the letters as an abstract landscape. Poets wrote verses about the distance between A and M, standing for the distance between chance and intention. The coin story became part of global creative language, a symbol that even the smallest deviation can give birth to wonder. In a montage, historians explain how its market value continued to climb, not purely from scarcity but from story. Each auction rekindled public fascination. The narration clarifies that the true worth, however, remained immaterial. What the 1992 penny bought was not wealth, but awareness. It purchased attention, the rarest currency of all. The camera glides across a lecture hall where students watch holographic recreations of mint presses. Their instructor pauses the simulation and asks, "What would have happened if no one noticed?" Silence fills the room. On screen, the Close AM spins slowly, suspended in midair. Every unnoticed detail, the professor continues, is a history waiting to be found. As the documentary nears its end, the tone deepens. It shows interviews with the last generation of traditional engravers. One of them, his hand steady despite age, says quietly, "We try for perfection, but the soul always slips through somewhere. That's where the magic hides." His words echo through the sequence as the music swells, strings, low brass, the rhythmic pulse of minting presses blended with heartbeats. Night falls over Washington, D.C. The Lincoln Memorial glows in the distance, its reflection trembling on the water. The narrator's voice returns, softer now. The 1992 penny was born of precision and error, of routine and miracle. It reminds us that every mark we make carries the possibility of meaning beyond intention. It reminds us that time itself is a kind of mint, striking moments, some perfect, some flawed, all precious. Images of hands, young and old, pass coins from palm to palm. A child in a park drops a penny into a fountain. A curator closes a glass case. A collector writes a final note in his ledger. Each act is both ending and continuation. The narrator concludes it in the smallest space between two letters. Humanity found reflection. In a single cent, it found a story that outlasted empires of paper and code. And as long as someone bends close enough to see, the story of the 1992 penny will go on, not as a mistake corrected, but as a reminder cherished. The final frame fades to the sound of a single coin striking metal, clear, resonant, endless, before silence. Dawn over the National Mall. The first light catches the marble of the Lincoln Memorial, the very monument whose image the 1992 penny still carries. For a moment the scene feels circular, the real and the engraved, the monument and its miniature reflection, both washed in the same pale gold of morning. The narrator begins softly, almost a whisper. Every civilization leaves behind its metal. Bronze for the Romans, silver for the empires of trade, copper for a young republic that believed even its smallest coin should bear the face of freedom. The camera drifts through time-worn corridors of the U.S. Mint, then through workshops, attics, classrooms, kitchen drawers, places where the penny has lived its second life. The narration continues. The 1992 close AM began as an oversight, became a discovery, and ended as a mirror in which humanity saw itself. It told us that perfection is not the absence of error but the presence of awareness. It taught us that attention is the bridge between matter and meaning. Archival footage rolls, collectors at conventions, scientists under microscopes, schoolchildren peering into magnifiers. Their faces overlap like layers of history. A single phrase returns again and again: look closer. The film widens outward. City streets pulse with digital transactions, cashless kiosks hum. The physical penny, once the pulse of commerce, now survives mostly as story. Yet the narration insists that disappearance is not erasure. Long after the last cent leaves circulation, its idea will remain. Because value was never metal, it was memory. Every time a human being pauses long enough to notice what others pass by, the penny is reborn. A montage of sound follows: heartbeats, presses, rain on pavement, slowly merging into one rhythmic continuum. The image of the coin fills the screen, rotating, its surface marked by decades of touch. Like glints off the A&M, still nearly touching, still whispering the coincidence that started it all. The two letters, the voice says. Two edges almost meeting. Between them, a fraction of space, and inside that space, the whole mystery of creation. The film cuts to black for a long breath. Then the sound of children laughing fades in, coins clinking in their hands. A new generation continues the ritual without knowing its origin. Curiosity has survived the century. The final words come slowly, deliberate, like the striking of the die itself. From billions, one coin spoke. From one coin, countless eyes learned to see. The 1992 penny reminds us that meaning is minted every day, in metal, in thought, in the small acts of noticing that shape eternity. A single glint of light flares across the screen, resolves into the curve of the Earth seen from orbit, then into the faint outline of a copper coin tumbling through weightlessness. The last sound is not music but the gentle echo of metal meeting metal, time continuing its quiet press.